Welcome to Analysis in Chains with Nathan and Neal. Hey everybody, welcome to Analysis in Chains. I'm Nathan. Hi Neal, how are you?
Hey Nathan, how's it going? Great to be doing this podcast again. I'm sure people have noticed that we've been using pre-recorded shows in the last week or two while you're on your travels, so it's great to be finally doing a show again.
I missed you, Neal. It has been a long time.
I missed you too, Nathan.
I missed our special time together here.
Yeah, I think we should be talking about this offline, but it's good to know, Nathan. Thank you very much.
I want to tell you a little bit about my adventures. I mean, most of it was a work trip, but I did get a chance to go visit Ripple. And
awesome.
That was very cool. I was in San Francisco. I met with a group from Ripple. I want to say thanks to Christopher Heimers and Katrina and Zach for hosting the group that I was with. They gave us a tour of Ripple. They told us a bit about what Ripple is about. I was going there with a tour group. The tour group was from a big Berlin bank, and we were going to visit different companies that were doing financial startups, financial technology, and Ripple was one of the ones we visited. So as a crypto geek, I kind of liked that.
Awesome. So will you be investing in Ripple now after you visited them?
I think I spent all my money on this trip, even though it was a work trip. Now, it was interesting. But speaking of Ripple, I saw in the news, just when we're talking about news, that IBM is coming out with a cross-border payment solution.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's a sign of the times because whenever you look at the latest news in relation to cryptocurrencies or blockchain, there's like some other corporation that's now getting in on the game. It reminds me a lot of what's going on with cars and self-driving cars. First of all, it's just Google, then it's Tesla, and now every single car company is involved in self-driving cars because I guess you have to keep up with the Joneses, and I think that's what's happening with a lot of these corporations out there in regards to blockchain.
What's interesting whenever you see something like this is that the early adopters usually won't be the guys who have the most money. They'll be the startups, the guys who don't have much to lose. And so, like the Ripples get started up, they do an ICO, they raise, I think it was $90 million. It goes very well. And then the big companies that do have something to lose will end up coming in with the early majority, and so they'll make the investment now that the concept has been proven with some of those early startups. So it's neat to see. I don't know how directly IBM's going to be competing. I just saw that it was an international solution. They might not even be targeting banks. I don't know. But it just struck my eye when I saw that in the news. I think we've missed a lot of news just because we've been running these pre-recordings for the past few weeks. They've been good pre-recordings, though. I mean, we've had some good interviews, and we've got a bunch lined up for the future, don't we?
We do. I wish I could remember their names. So I won't list them off.
I think it's a little too soon to announce, and we'll announce them when we actually record them.
Yeah, once we have them recorded, then we can start scheduling when we'll release them. But we have been lining up a few. We've actually been getting a lot of emails from people as well, asking to be interviewed or have contacts to be interviewed. So yeah, it's going to be a fun few months having these interviews, and I look forward to them.
When this brings up a very interesting point is that some of our listeners are interested in being interviewed themselves because we've attracted some listeners who are relevant to the show, or they know some people, and so we will be accepting ideas. But I'll tell you where the best place is to give us your ideas is our new Slack page.
Well, hey.
Yeah, that's right. I've gone up. I just did it yesterday. I got recovering from the jet lag. I set up a Slack page around midnight last night and invited everyone who had signed up for our email list to go join it. And we had our first email list subscriber join our page. So listeners, don't let him be alone. Come and join us. I think Slack is going to be a little more engaging than email. You send an email into a radio show or a podcast, and it's like, oh, it's going to nowhere. Do I really want to sign up? But in a Slack page, we can converse. We can talk about notes from the previous shows. We can talk about new show ideas. You can give us interview ideas. And most importantly, you can tell us what we can do with our nutshells. We have these nutshells. We got to make a white paper, and we'd love to hear suggestions for how you'd like to see them used. And so, yeah, come join us on Slack. Meet up with us. Be our friends. We like you. You can sign up actually by visiting analysisinchains.com. And there's a button to sign up for the Slack, and I'll send you some nutshells for joining. I'll send you a Slack invite as soon as you sign up. All right. What else did I want to talk about before we got into our main thing? Oh, have you heard about this? There's I saw this while I was traveling in the news I was reading, and we hadn't had a chance to comment on it. JavaScript miners. Crypto miners. It's the new ads.
What?
Did you hear about this?
No.
So what companies are doing, and some of them are big, like PolitiFact was caught doing this. They write JavaScript crypto miners, or they actually use a pre-built solution. It's just a little JavaScript code that runs on a web page. So if you visit their web page, instead of showing you an ad, it will use your CPU to mine some crypto, probably something like using Equihash or something like that's GPU compliant, but they mine crypto and then deposit it into the person or the company's wallet.
Wow.
So instead of running an ad and getting ad revenue, they're just running a crypto miner. Apparently these things can be blocked with an ad blocker program. So
this is dodgy. This is dodgy. I think I'm gonna have to go into darknet, get one of those weird routers, and just go into darknet and stay away from all these cookies and ads and stuff like this. I think that's where we're going with internet. Is that it's like all of these big corporations are just exploiting us. I don't mean to sound like a crazy paranoid person with a tinfoil hat. But yeah, when I hear this, this makes me really annoyed, and I want to go into the darknet.
Yeah, well, I tell you what I want to do is I want to install one on our webpage, but I totally wouldn't do that. I hate when people are sort of sneaky about it, but I would rather something that be opt-in. But I think it's a cool concept.
Yeah,
but I hate when it's. I like the idea of, oh, you want to support us, you don't want to see ads, just install or I have a crypto miner running. Click yes to be cool with it while you're doing it. But yeah, this whole sneaky, hey, we're gonna steal your electricity, basically. I think there are better solutions than that. Anyway, no one worry. We haven't installed anything on our website.
Yeah. We're not that advanced.
No. So Bitcoin price. That's the other thing. It seems to be shooting up, eh?
Yeah. So I guess this leads into what we'll be talking about today, which is of course Bitcoin Gold. I know a lot of people have been talking about it for the last few weeks. And we've kind of put it off, mainly because when we did want to talk about it originally, there was not a lot of information about it. So we were hoping that more information would come forward, and then the more we waited, the more people started talking about Bitcoin Gold being a scam, and so it really starts to bring up the whole debate of Bitcoin, SegWit2x again, and trying to figure out where this cryptocurrency is going, the gold standard, as they say. And what has been interesting is that, as you said, it's just been shooting up. It went from 5,000 to 3,000, and Neal was laughing and giggling and was saying, this is the apocalypse, it's finally here, and he was completely wrong.
Cryptocalypse.
And then it's now shot back up to 5,700. So it is a bit crazy, but a part of me is wondering, and Nathan, you and I said this to each other, we should buy Bitcoin and put it in the Bitcoin wallet and see what happens when Bitcoin Gold is created and SegWit2x is created and we get free money. And so I'm wondering, is this big surge in price down to the fact that people all want a piece of the free money action that's on its way in the next month?
Maybe. You know what? It's really hard to tell. There are so many factors. I think that people's views to the future, especially investors' views to the future, are even shorter term than that. I think the Bitcoin price rise is largely due to sort of just a rebound effect, and then with this small rebound of the price, it going back up, confidence coming back. What we saw in even the past week was big banks now sort of giving their seal of approval to Bitcoin. I mean, UBS and what was the other one? UBS and Citigroup both published Bitcoin explainers. So ever since the Bitcoin price rose above 4,000, and so as they're sort of giving their tacit approval, you get more people using it, and essentially the number one driver of Bitcoin price right now is the number of people that are buying it, and the number of people who are aware of it increase. As the number of people who are aware of it increases, the number of people who buy it will also increase, and so that's why you're seeing sort of this jump up. And I do think that that the next thing we'll see in maybe the next week will be people speculating on whether Bitcoin Gold is a good thing or not. But honestly, I think it's a little bit like trying to follow political news of Trump or something. By the time something happens, something else happens, and so it's really hard to see into the future with something where the information changes so rapidly. So for Bitcoin, with all of this rapidly changing information, I think it's hard for people to speculate based on something that's a month down the road.
Yeah, no,
when they're really speculating on what's happening a day down the road.
I think you made a very good point there in terms of all the information that is out there, and how much it's like politics. Is that what's the truth and what isn't? I find it very interesting following the stories in relation to Bitcoin Cash, SegWit2x, and how political all of these conversations have become. It's so hard to know who's right and who's wrong. So when the whole Bitcoin Gold story emerged, I thought it was very interesting. And then it's like all I could find in terms of information was how Bitcoin Gold is a scam. And I can't verify this. I don't have the expertise to really verify it or really understand enough. And so it's very hard to know myself, okay, should I buy Bitcoin? Is it a risk to buy Bitcoin now? And then with the SegWit2x story, I think a lot of people think it's free money, like what happened with Bitcoin Cash, but it's still hard to know what's right and what's wrong, because so many people are on one side or the other. Over here in the West, like in all the YouTube videos I look at, a lot of people are on the side of the core developers. But the thing is that I feel like with any currency, like there's two main parties, and when one party starts like thrashing the other party, it gets very, very messy. And then for me, I would see Bitcoin as more of a risk going into these two hard forks, because it's so hard to know, can these forks be smooth transition like we saw with Bitcoin Cash? Because with Bitcoin Cash, you saw this big drop in price before the hard fork, and then it passed by smoothly and everyone was happy and the price shot back up. But with what's happening with SegWit2x, I'd be more nervous instead of seeing it as free money, because this political issue is so divisive that you could have a lot of these miners just go to SegWit2x, and what happens to normal Bitcoin? Like, you're gonna have a big vacuum because all these miners could potentially leave, and then who's left to continue with Bitcoin?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. There is. There's just
a lot.
So much
there is a lot, and it's so hard to really know, how it's going to play out.
I find it funny that we're talking about increased risk and like what risk level we're tolerant of in Bitcoin, when Bitcoin is something that halves in value one week and will triple in value the next week, and yet we're it's like the single most risky investment that's out there, and we're talking about, well, what if this is risky?
Yeah, but
it seems a little silly.
Yeah, but you just made a very good point. On Bloomberg, they often point out that Bitcoin is one of the most cited one of the most cited trades out there in the world. In other words, everyone feels that this is such a sure thing that everyone is betting that will just keep going up. And as you say there, that it is a very, very risky asset. How can people think this is a one-way bet when there's so many risks associated with it? And in a way, this is possibly where the risk of bubbles come from, because people just think it's a sure thing, but in actual fact, things are getting more riskier, not becoming more guaranteed. And I think people are misinterpreting what's happening now in relation to SegWit2x.
Well, I think that's a good transition for us to move into unpacking a little bit about what's going on with Bitcoin Gold, and then later in November, SegWit2x. So Bitcoin Gold is the newest hard fork that is coming out. It's slated to happen on October 25th. And then there's another hard fork or that's supposed to happen in November, SegWit2x. And so let's start with Bitcoin Gold. So Bitcoin Gold, from what I can read, the idea and the theory behind it is that there are people who feel too much power has been concentrated in the miners. They want to re-democratize it, and so the theory is if you make a new algorithm, or if you use a new hashing algorithm for mining Bitcoin, then you can redistribute power. And so what they want to use is the Equihash algorithm. This is something that's been documented. It's been used in other cryptocurrencies. I've forgotten which ones because I don't have it in front of me. However, essentially, the way Bitcoin's mining works is it's very computationally intensive, and you can create a specialized chip called an ASIC, an application-specific integrated circuit, that you can't use it to run Windows and check your email, but what you, at least not effectively, but what you can do with it is mine Bitcoins, and it can hash and hash and hash. And the difference is that your normal CPU can mine about 5 to 10 million hashes per second, so it can basically try all of these different passwords and try to mine a block 5 to 10 million times a second, whereas an ASIC can mine 5 to 10 trillion times per second, or approximately 1 million times faster. This makes it really cost effective. The thing is, it doesn't use much memory. The hashing algorithm doesn't use much memory, and so if you change to an algorithm that uses more memory, and that's what Equihash does, then what happens is your normal CPU can run this Equihash algorithm at maybe 10 to 30 hashes per second, so it's much slower, whereas a specialized ASIC can do it about 1,000 to 3,000 hashes per second. So this is about 100 times more work. So you can see you were getting 1 million times return on buying an ASIC before, whereas now you're getting 100 times return. It makes ASICs a lot less viable for the costs in both the electricity and the cost of the machine. So I get the idea behind this is by taking power away from big companies with a lot of cash to buy ASICs and mine, you essentially democratize Bitcoin again. You're putting it out there. So that's sort of the theory. Okay. Does that make sense, Neil? Did I explain that well?
Yeah, I actually thought you did a very good job there, Nathan. That was crystal clear. And it is a very interesting debate, because it's like, do people want cryptocurrencies to be something that anyone on this earth can mine? Like, you just buy a graphics card, set up your rig, and you start mining? Or, why not allow people to work and invest and grow their mining capability through ASICs? And it's like, this is what I find is a tough question, because on one hand, you kind of want capitalism to play out naturally, and it's like, okay, if you want to invest in this and you want to have super computational power to do all of these algorithms, in a way it should be fair game. But on the other side is that, actually the common person won't be able to compete. And is it fair? I often ask myself this: is it fair to create that restriction? Because we do know some cryptocurrencies are ASIC resistant, But does it matter? Like, why not let capitalism take over and anyone can do what they want in terms of mining? Like, well, like it's. I think this is like the question that people can't answer, and therefore it's why it creates a lot of politics.
I think when it comes to this type of politics, it really comes down to what your outcomes are. Personally, I believe I'm not a big believer in unchecked capitalism, even though I am an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur at heart. The problem is you end up getting rich get richer scenarios, oligarchies, and then you end up having serfdoms, right? And so, like, the whole idea of Bitcoin at the beginning was that it's hard to control, but then if you've got people who have piles of money buying server farms next to cheap electricity, then suddenly they have control and then can tell you what to do, where to invest, or they can basically dominate the market or direct it in whichever way benefits them, so that it no longer benefits the average person. And I mean, it's the problem with any economy, right? Like, who gets the power?
Yeah, but I think like you do make a great point, because I think people are becoming very wary of corporations and governments. I know a lot of people speak out about governments and how they control money supply, but I think what we see happening in the news lately is the fear of corporate power, especially the likes of Facebook and Google, where we keep seeing them more and more in the news. And that the whole idea that capitalism could sort of hijack something like Bitcoin, I know is scary to a lot of people. But then just going back to you as an entrepreneur, there are people who are out there who would want to try and grow their mining capability, who would want to have a huge mining farm. But can people, like, is it fair to stifle people like that? That's the thing it's kind of like, it feels like a moral or ethical question in regards to cryptocurrencies going down this path. Like, is it fair to stop people wanting to mine more and be better at it? And on one hand, I get the whole capitalism thing. I think you made a very good point there. Unchecked capitalism is probably what people are fearful of. And I think that's a very good point. But at the same time, do you want to hold people back from being ambitious and doing their best for the community by, donating so much of their time and capital to grow a mining capability that is good for the network?
Yes. I mean, personally, I think it's dangerous if any actor gets too much power, be they benevolent or malevolent or greedy or whatever. I think it's dangerous. However, that's probably a debate for another time. But I do, I think that power is better when distributed.
Yeah, and
however, we should probably get back to a couple of the things that we found about Bitcoin Gold specifically, because this hard fork is coming up in a week, basically, or in a week and change, on the 25th. And there were a couple of things that gave me pause. Now, I'm not knowledgeable enough to be able to say this is a scam or this is legit, but here are a couple of things that gave me pause, and if I miss anything, like, you can say something as well. The first thing is that they're pre-mining about 1% of the blocks. All right, so this is an issue. Now, yeah, that's dodgy. Essentially, what it means is that the person who is creating Bitcoin Gold is sort of the brainchild of a guy named Jack Liao. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And anyway, he controls a ton of hashing power. All right, he's a big player in Bitcoin, and he wanted to do this thing. And so what they're going to do is they do the hard fork on the 25th, but that doesn't mean Bitcoin Gold is available on the 25th. It means that people who will participate in the hard fork and run nodes will pre-mine a certain number of blocks so that they control that amount. And they say, well, that's for our participation or whatever, but that really undermines the legitimacy of it, and it will give him total control of the network, at least at the outset. So that right there, if you're saying, well, our thing is to re-democratize this and not concentrate power, that raises red flags all over the place. If you're pre-mining,
Yeah, big time, big time.
it's it's like no one else can participate except us until we get a majority of the 1% of these blocks mined, and then we've got the nodes running it, and so we're totally democratizing it. We're giving it back to you, the people. The same way that Bane did in the Batman movie there. You, the people, but really he controls it all.
Yeah,
So that was the first thing.
Yeah. That to me was the biggest red flag of them all. I struggled to go further than that. Once I read that, I was like, oh, is there anything else I can read about Bitcoin Gold that can make me more convinced it's legitimate? But that's worrying.
I am hesitant to call anyone a malicious actor. Because that requires taking a side, right? I tend to see in most areas just people with interests. However, when you're talking about the integrity of a system, if you have certain ideals and values that you believe in, Bitcoin is a democratized currency or security or whatever it is, you're talking about billions of dollars of value. So people aren't just sort of like, oh, I think it should go in this direction, I think it should go in that direction. They have their own self-interest as well. They think think it should go in this direction because then I stand to gain $100 million. I can see saying, okay, maybe you're somewhat malicious if you're willing to undermine everybody else in order to benefit. And what I see with these Bitcoin forks is that it is possible that people are bringing up more and more forks in order to reduce the number of nodes that are hashing in the Bitcoin network, right? People don't tend to run multiple nodes for multiple currencies. People tend to pick and choose. And there's a reason. It takes a lot of computing power to run a Monero node, to run a Bitcoin node, to run an Ethereum node. You can't really run multiple hashing nodes on one computer effectively. So if you do a hard fork, and this is something that investors don't really see because we see buying coins and we're not running full nodes, we're just holding them in our wallets and we want this one and that one. But when you do a hard fork and you take away a certain number of nodes, you're chipping away at the cryptographic security that backs the industry. And if I were someone, for example, who wanted to make a pile of money and I was heavily invested in alternate Bitcoins, certain altcoins, maybe Bitcoin failing would cause people to migrate their money over to my coin. And so maybe it would be in my best interest to reduce the cryptographic security. Now, I don't think this is quite true for the altcoins that are really running a different algorithm. I have good faith in a lot of these cryptocurrencies that are out there. But the ones that are hard forks or even soft forks of Bitcoin, like Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, whether it's intentional or not, they are reducing the security of the overall network. And one of the things that could happen if you do take too much power away from the core miners, and this is, whether it's political or not, this is a danger that people have to be aware of, even if it's completely not malicious, is that if you reduce too far the ability of ASICs and the big miners to mine the Bitcoins, you're vulnerable to someone setting up Amazon cloud server nodes. All right, so this is the thing. ASICs can hash heavily. They can hash a lot. They can go far. And if suddenly they don't have the power anymore, and they're being used on an established network, then someone can come along and set up 1 million Amazon Web Services cloud server miners to do this new hashing algorithm. And suddenly these cloud server miners can compete with an ASIC. Why can they compete? Because they're cheap to set up and because they have the memory. they can expand. And so if not enough people are running full nodes because they're just investors, they've got Bitcoin sitting in their wallet, their light wallet, it's not a full node wallet, you could end up having a malicious actor come along and just fake the whole Bitcoin network and take it over. And I don't think we're at that point yet, but it is something to keep in mind as these forks grow.
I think you made an excellent point, Nathan, and it goes back to my earlier comment on how price is going up, but the risks are actually increasing. People don't realize, they probably see these hard forks as a way to make money, but in actual fact, there are some vulnerabilities that are actually growing and could cause serious issues within Bitcoin. So it's it's going to be very interesting to see what actually happens, because from listening to you, I wouldn't want to own Bitcoin anymore. Last month, I wanted Bitcoin because there's free cash coming. It was like having a dividend. But now I'm thinking, wow, something could really happen with Bitcoin. And because people view the original Bitcoin, or whatever you want to call it, as the gold standard, if that price were to be compromised in any way, this could cause a huge loss in confidence in a lot of cryptocurrencies. Because if Bitcoin goes up, a lot of other cryptocurrencies follow it. So yeah, everyone is acting like it's going to be an early Christmas, but I think, as you rightly pointed out, there are risks ahead, and people shouldn't rush in and buy Bitcoin Gold without actually assessing the risks that are coming with it.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of funny that we're talking about risk and increased risk in Bitcoin, the riskiest investment out there. All right. This went on a bit longer than I expected, but what do you expect? We had 2 weeks of recordings.
We had a lot of catching up to do. Yeah. Yeah. We're making the most of it.
All right. Well, what's your prediction, Neil?
I'm okay. I'm going to be predictable, and I'm going to say that after SegWit2x, even if everything goes smoothly, we could see a big drop in price, because I think people are buying to get the free money, and once they get the free money, people will cash out, and there will be a big dip. It's not a crash, but there will be a big dip after it.
I can't disagree with you, honestly. I know it's weird, but it does seem quite logical that there's going to reach a peak hype, and then people will want to cash out, and then when people see a small dip, people will continue to cash out and say, "Oh, it's crashing, sell now." And so
yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. I think it's going to be a very exciting month, and I can't wait.
Yeah. All right, guys. Don't forget to join us on Slack. Visit analysisinchains.com. That's our show. Thanks for tuning in to Analysis in Chains with Nathan and Neil. Check us out at analysisinchains.com, on iTunes, Podbean, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep hashing.